Sections 19.1 to 19.2. Confession. 19.1. God gave to Adam a law, as a covenant of works, by which he bound him and all his posterity, to personal, entire, exact, and perpetual obedience, promised life upon the fulfilling, and threatened death upon the breach of it, and endued him with power and ability to keep it. 19.2. This law, after his fall, continued to be a perfect rule of righteousness, and, as such, was delivered by God upon Mount Sinai, in 10 commandments, and written in 2 tables, the first 4 commandments containing our duty towards God, and the other 6, our duty to man. Introduction. These sections of the Confession teach us, 1. That the law of God exhibits the standard of perfect obedience which God imposed upon Adam at creation, 2. That its demands were absolute, and 3. That this law, the demands of which have never ceased to stand for all men everywhere, was revealed in summary, by way of general principles, at Sinai on 2 tables of stone. Questions. 1. Prove that the law of God is always obligatory for man. 2. Did Adam have the law? In what manner? 3. Was the law changed by the fall of man? If not, what was changed? 4. What 2 important things demonstrate that all men are under the law? 5. Is the Christian obligated to keep the law less than is the unbeliever? Prove this. 6. What 2 positive principles fulfill the law? 7. State the principles contained in the first 4 commandments. 8. Give an example of a modern-day violation of each of these commandments. 9. Is it right to accept other rules besides the 10 commandments? Why? Sections 19.3 to 19.5. Confession. 19.3. Besides this law, commonly called moral, God was pleased to give to the people of Israel, as a church under age, ceremonial laws, containing several typical ordinances, partly of worship, prefiguring Christ, his graces, actions, sufferings, and benefits, and partly, holding forth divers instructions of moral duties, all which ceremonial laws are now abrogated, under the New Testament. 19.4. To them also, as a body politic, he gave sundry judicial laws, which expired together with the state of that people, not obliging any other now, further than the general equity thereof may require. 19.5. The moral law doth forever bind all, as well justified persons as others, to the obedience thereof, and that, not only in regard of the matter contained in it, but also in respect of the authority of God the Creator, who gave it. Neither doth Christ, in the gospel, any way dissolve, but much strengthen this obligation. Introduction. These sections of the Confession teach us, 1. That God gave the nation Israel ceremonial laws, in addition to and distinct from the moral law, consisting of types and symbols of A. Christ and his redemptive work, and B. The Holy Spirit and his work in the application of redemption. 2. That these laws are now abrogated. 3. That he also gave that nation certain civil laws which terminated with the end of the Jewish theocracy. But, 4. That the moral law remains in effect, and it was understood, under the Old Testament economy, that it would be so. Questions. 1. Besides the moral law, God also gave 2 other types of laws. What were they? 2. What was the purpose of the ceremonial law? 3. Prove that it has been abolished. 4. What was the purpose of the civil laws? 5. Did Old Testament believers themselves recognize a distinction between the 10 Commandments and the ceremonial and civil ordinances? Give 2 proofs. 6. What defect in the ceremonial law itself indicated the need for something better? Sections 19.6 to 19.7. Confession. 19.6 Although true believers be not under the law, as a covenant of works, to be thereby justified, or condemned, yet is it of great use to them, as well as to others, in that, as a rule of life informing them of the will of God, and their duty, it directs and binds them to walk accordingly. Discovering also the sinful pollutions of their nature, hearts, and lives, so as, examining themselves thereby, they may come to further conviction of, humiliation for, and hatred against sin, together with a clearer sight of the need they have of Christ, and the perfection of his obedience. It is likewise of use to the regenerate, to restrain their corruptions, in that it forbids sin, and the threatening of it serve to show what even their sins deserve, and what afflictions, in this life, they may expect for them, although freed from the curse thereof threatened in the law. The promises of it, in like manner, show them God's approbation of obedience, and what blessings they may expect upon the performance thereof, although not as due to them by the law as a covenant of works. So as, a man's doing good, and refraining from evil, because the law encourages to the one, and deterred from the other, is no evidence of his being under the law, and not under grace. 19.7 Neither are the forementioned uses of the law contrary to the grace of the gospel, but do sweetly comply with it, the Spirit of Christ subduing and enabling the will of man to do that freely, and cheerfully, which the will of God, revealed in the law, requireth to be done. Introduction. These sections of the Confession teach us, 1. That true believers are not under law as a covenant of salvation, 2. But that they are under it as a rule of practice, b. a means of knowing their sin and consequent need of Christ, and c. a revelation of Christ's perfection. 3. That it is also operative upon the unregenerate, a. to restrain them, b. to warn them, and c. to reveal God to them. 4. That a man's doing good, and refraining from evil, because the law encourageth to the one and deterreth from the other, is no evidence of his being under the law, and not under grace, and 5. That these uses of law are in no way contrary to gospel grace but, rather, essential to it. Questions. 1. What text is frequently misquoted as respects the believer's relation to the law? 2. What error is maintained by those who abuse this text? 3. What is the true meaning of under in this text? 4. What does it mean to be under the law? 5. What does it mean to be under grace? 6. How is law important to the covenant of grace? 7. Of what use is the law to believers? 8. What good does the law do in the case of unbelievers?